Welcome to Season 9 of Purposeful Empathy, a show dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who believe the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. Today's episode is brought to you by Grand Huron International, an on-demand coaching provider for individuals and companies. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today I am joined by a friend, a dear, dear friend who helped me through my book writing process. Brenda is also an artist. She's a writer, filmmaker, and digital storyteller. In 2015, Brenda founded something called Storytime, which was an oral storytelling group in her neighborhood cafe. And as a creator of transformative gatherings, she led those groups through the drama and hilarity of life stories and helped weave them together. More recently, she has turned her passion and talents to building a human and media platform called The Village to bring people from all over the world together to share their life stories. Welcome to the show, Brenda. Before you say anything, I just want to let you know that a mutual friend of ours in the city put us in contact when I was living in Georgia 2 years ago already. Is that possible? In the midst of in the peak of the pandemic, and you were just starting to think about the village, and you were looking for a partner, and somebody recommended that we get in contact in case I wanted to jump in, and I couldn't. I was busy working on my book, obviously, but we just fell in love. It was like girl crushing so hard. And I remember meeting you for the first time and spilling my guts about my family relations. And you held the space long enough for me to get out what I needed to get out. And then we switched gears and I just absolutely adore you. And I've been dying to do this interview with you since then. And you were like, let's wait for the right time. And now is the right time. So welcome to the show, Brenda.
Oh, be still my heart. Thank you so much. That is just beautiful. That is just a beautiful introduction. And girl crush indeed. It was really like a meeting of hearts and souls. And please do not be, uncomfortable in any way that you, quote, spilled your guts to me, because this happens to me on the daily. So I've had, people, I think it's my superpower is that people talk to me. So.
Which is why the work that you do throughout the thread of your life has been about stories. So let's go back. Let's rewind and trace back to your filmmaker. What is it about filmmaking that you loved? What did you love doing as projects? Let's talk a little bit about that first.
When I was in CEGEP, so in Quebec, that would be the equivalent of like a junior college. I saw a film by, at the time, very, very well-known sort of art house filmmaker, Ingmar Bergman from Sweden. It was called Persona. And when I saw that film, I realized that you can do in film what you can do in literature, which is you can really go anywhere and do anything and express anything. And it really opened me up. And also included all of my loves, which was photography, writing, screenwriting, working for actors, creating characters, creating new worlds. And I think in many ways, I've actually recently realized people are always calling me a visionary, and it makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And I finally realized last week that indeed I am a visionary. And the reason why is because somehow, for some reason, I see a better world inside of me. I feel a better world. I feel healthier, happier people. And so that's where I'm trying to go in my writing. And filmmaking just put together all of my loves, art direction, costume, makeup, words, story, obviously, and most of all, an amazing opportunity to create characters, control them, so they do what I think they should be doing, and then bring them together and have them rub up together to create sparks. And that's what I love to do.
Somebody recently mentioned to me the movie The Bridges of Madison County. Have you ever seen that? It was a book that turned into a movie with Meryl
It's
Streep
it. I
and
know just a
Robert
little bit
Redford.
about it. Yeah.
Well, there's just this iconic scene at the very, very end where a woman married to a man who has a couple of children um, has to make the decision to stay with that family or to follow a man that came into her life that she had an affair with. I know I'm spoiler alert for everybody who's listening, but there's a distinct moment in that film where it's raining and you can see the windshield going, and she has to make the decision, is she going to let him drive off, or is she going to go say, no, 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 stay in my life? And I think uh, great filmmaking, just like literature, there can be a scene or the movie as a whole just kind of like changes how you feel about something. And that's what you tried to stir up in people, right?
Oh, I called my films emotional action films
Mm.
for sure. My first film released on the world was called Wanker. And for those who don't know what it means, I mean, in the UK, it's sort of like you're a jerk if you're a wanker, but really what they also mean is jerking off,
Yep.
masturbating. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was indeed about a young compulsive masturbator. And it was a comedy, but really a dramatic comedy. And I realized that one, I had a talent to make people laugh, and two, I was really, really interested in getting deep inside people and, planting seeds, if not actually growing something new inside of them, and helping us all make the connections to our deepest selves and find pathways to explore our freedom and our love for ourselves and each other, which really, and this is the first time I've ever said it like that. I like to design things so that people's hearts open and whatever they need to feel. So sometimes that's uncomfortable, as in the case of a compulsive masturbator. I can't tell you how many young men came to me at all the screenings and said to me, how did you know? How did you know? That's how I feel. I feel like I'm a compulsive masturbator. I feel like I'm, completely disconnected from my life. And that was shocking to me. Yeah.
Okay, so the thread, you've already mentioned this thread of wanting to open up people's hearts. And then you did it through this interesting project in your neighborhood called Story Time. So what was that all about?
So, I'm a writer at heart, and that means being alone, being sort of sequestered in your own bubble. But it also means being out there in the world. And so I started writing in a neighborhood cafe, and it was such a wild mix of characters and cultures and religions and generations. And I just loved it. And I felt myself like a vampire, feeding off the blood of these amazing people. And combined with this sort of, I don't know, innate skill that I have that invites people to share with me, I started hearing some of the most amazing stories, and I became voracious. I wanted more, more, more. And then I thought, maybe other people want this too. I really, to be completely honest, I didn't work this all out. It was really very instinctive. I spoke to the owner of the cafe about it, and he was like, yay, let's do it. And that's how it started. And he said to me, actually, he said, we'll set up a stage and we'll do it after hours, and we'll get you a microphone and an amp, and and we'll set up the chairs so people can watch. And that's when I had my, I guess, Eureka moment, which was, yeah, I could go the performative storytelling route and have people stand up and tell their stories. But I was really more interested instinctively in the experience of not only storytelling and listening to storytelling, but of risking. And so if the storyteller was going to risk, that meant the audience had to risk as well. And if the audience was going to risk, well, that meant everybody was risking. So there should not be a separation between storyteller and audience. We should all be one and the same, all sitting around the same table democratically, taking the same risk. And once I started, now I look back and I see that's what it was, But really quite quickly, once we started after hours in this cafe where we brought all the tables together so everybody could see each other, everybody was at the same level, everybody could see and hear each other. Once that started happening, I pretty quickly realized, oh my God, something is going on here, something powerful. And as the months went by, because we did it once a month, I started to realize that people would come in, strangers to each other. 2 hours later, they would leave and they would stand outside the by then shut coffee shop and they couldn't stop talking. Something was happening. We were going from being an individual to being part of the greater whole. And even as I say that, after all this time, I still get a shiver because there is something in that recognition that is so powerful. I realized it was transformative. So when I read Priya Parker's amazing book, The Art of Gathering, and she started talking about transformative gatherings, I realized, holy shit, even though I felt kind of weird to use such a, word as transformative, I am a creator of transformative gatherings. I realized it's really true, and it's not about me. It's about what happens. I help to facilitate. I help to inspire. But it's really what happens when people come together and rub up against each other. It's really, really powerful. People start to share their hearts and their souls through their stories.
So, okay, I'm going to interrupt you here because I've been to a storytelling session. I know what work you do. I have an affinity for this kind of gathering where we all kind of share our souls. But to the skeptics listening, or anybody who maybe feels like, I don't know if I'd get together with a group of strangers and share sorts of stories about my life, could you give a few examples of what happens at story time, or what happened in the past? And then we'll talk more about your current work, like what came up and how did that happen? I mean, how did people feel safe to do that? And yeah, just share a little more.
Right. Part of it is that democratic process. It's that realization once you sit down that everybody is taking the same risk. So suddenly it's not as scary. You don't have to get up on stage. Everybody is on stage. At a certain point, deep into doing this, after a number of years of doing this, I had an epiphany at one particular in real life gathering where the stories, one after the other, people were just like bouncing off each other, weaving this golden thread together, listening so deeply to each other that it affected the stories they chose to tell. And it was an amazing night. And I had this moment where I thought, as everybody was connecting so deeply and playing off each other like musicians in an orchestra, I had this epiphany and I realized this is next level filmmaking. This is actually a new art form, and everybody in it, we're all making the film together. We are all the actors. We are all the writers. It's happening spontaneously, but within a structure. And so you ask, how do people feel comfortable? I mean, I think it's an excellent question. So many people would come to me at the beginning of story time and say, I'm really excited to be here. I love stories. I love listening to stories, but I'm kind of introverted. I'm shy. If you don't mind, I would prefer not to tell a story. And I'd say, no problem. No one is ever forced. 95% of the time, those people would end up telling a story. And I think the reason why is because everybody was in it together. Mm. And that sort of democratic principle really helps. And also, the facilitation is really important. I'm someone, and there are many of us, yourself included, you are, I consider, absolutely a master at bringing people together and helping to facilitate a transformative experience in university, in the classroom, and outside of a classroom, in other kind of environments. And so that really helps. And one thing that I always say to people, like the secret sauce of story time, which is the cornerstone of the village, is someone has to start opening their hearts. And once one person does that, well, an open heart opens hearts. And I think that's my secret sauce, because I'm not so afraid to open my heart. I'm not so afraid to be vulnerable in front of people and to share, because I know the benefits of sharing. I know that so much comes back to me when I share. So people, there'll be lots of people who will come into it and be skeptical or be scared or be nervous or shy. And most of them get over it pretty quickly and just start absorbing the benefits.
Yeah, I think it's one of those circumstances that runs counter to what society that we're living in now breeds, which is alienation and separateness and ego and individualism. And I remember a long time ago when Oprah had left her show. She stopped after 25 seasons, and she said, out of the thousands upon thousands and thousands of people that she met through her show, and I don't mean just audience members, like people, guests on her show, she said everybody wants to feel heard. And I think humans want to feel a sense of belonging and mutual support. And, these gatherings of people allow us to be who we are, allow us to show up in all of our colors and foibles, and authentically sharing the human experience and giving each other permission to do so the same way, right?
That is another cornerstone, and it is what I realized. When we feel seen and heard, we feel loved.
Mm.
And when we feel loved, we want to give that love.
That is the equation. That is the equation. So, okay, we're now we are going to move to the new work. So the pandemic actually helped that shift happen. So, okay, take us through it. What happened?
So I had been doing story time for about 5 years. And in January, the year that the pandemic started, and that was in March, and I heard about a presentation on the science of the climate emergency given by Extinction Rebellion, a very exciting global climate activist group. And I almost didn't go. I mean, just think about, like, this was a super critical part of it. I almost didn't go because I thought, I know how bad it is. But I pushed myself because of this group. And it was life-changing. It was obviously devastating, and it blew me away. I mean, it rendered me speechless and made me ask myself the question, do I need to dedicate the rest of my life to really intentionally being part of the solution? And I think, or solution, is there a solution? Not according to science, but at least I wanted to be on the road to intentional healing of ourselves and our planet. And I didn't sleep that night, and weeks later, while I was still in that process, the pandemic hit. I went onto my first meeting in Zoom and had an epiphany. And I thought, there we can Zoom, this video conferencing that I had never had a need for before. All of a sudden I thought, I can do this. It's an amazing way to bring people all over the world together in the same place. So that was the beginning. I started to see, because people for years I'd been doing Storytime for 5 years in real life, and people had always said to me, Brenda, you're doing this incredible thing. Why aren't you turning it into a film or a book or a series or at least a podcast or something? And I just was like, I was so enthralled by the experience. And I said, yeah. And I figured somebody else would do it, not me. But that's what happened. Suddenly it became me. And slowly through the process of birthing the village, I have really realized how it responds to every part of me, every talent I have, every curiosity and interest, every passion. All my drive goes into this crazy don't even know what to call it. Some people call it a startup. Some people call it an organization. Some people call it a movement. Whatever it is, it's so much bigger than me. But
So
right now, I'm the steward.
you are the steward of this thing called the village. What do you want the village to accomplish? Let me rephrase it. What is the purpose of the village?
Yeah, no, it's just it's obviously the question, and my heart is in my throat right now. There's so much that I want to say, but I guess what I will say is to bring people closer together. That's the latest sort of log line, if you will, gathering all over the world to share our stories and bring us closer together. And when we are closer together, our hearts open to each other, we start to care. And that is what I am now calling Hearts of Ukraine, which is our first social impact campaign through story time, through these gatherings. And I'm calling it a call to care, because I believe that if we care about each other more, if we care about each other at all, then we will work better together on healing ourselves, each other, and our world.
Today's episode was brought to you by Grand Huron International, an on-demand coaching provider for individuals and companies.
So what is Hearts of Ukraine about?
Hearts of Ukraine happened, first of all, when one of my amazing advisors, Daniel Lindenberger, put me in contact with the founder of an organization a decentralized global organization called Ukraine Now. They bring people from all over the world together who volunteer to do anything and everything that they can to help the people of Ukraine. It's really that simple. So when I spoke with Arthur Killian, a pretty amazing serial social justice warrior entrepreneur, he said, we need to bring these people from all these different places together, and to strengthen their connection to each other and to uplift them as we're all going through this nightmare together. And so I hosted about 18 gatherings with these people, and they were all recorded. And during these gatherings, I started to realize that the story is the suffering and challenges that the Ukrainian people are going through, but it is also the story of this global outpouring of support. And it is the story of people caring and people helping people. So I thought, yeah, this, so I reached out to the world and I said, I'm looking for some editors. We have no money, we haven't started, but we need to do this thing. So people responded. I have some people from various countries, including someone you introduced me to from Armenia. And we started editing these together. My husband, who's a brilliant music composer, Ned Buhalasa, started scoring, putting music to these 25 to 80-second videos, and Hearts of Ukraine was born. And we've recently started launching it with no money, no promotion, no engagement. We just sort of opened up the village, if I have to be honest, kind of before we're ready, but because of the necessity of getting these hearts, these global volunteers out there and activating and touching people and uplifting people and inspiring people, and above all, opening our hearts to each other.
So let's make this real. Let's take a second to watch one of these videos that you've produced. Can you cue it up for us?
Yes. I'm just going to go for a blockbuster. I tend to go bold. So here we go. I'm going to show you one of really a series of videos that we have of young Ukrainian women thanking the volunteers and really thanking the world for so much support. I learned and realized how important not only was it to show people, the volunteers who are helping, but to equally show the gratitude and the experience of the Ukrainians. I think many of us feel when we receive gratitude that it uplifts us and inspires us to give more. And this is so much about giving, right? So this is Aliona, and in fact, it's one of the first times in the early gatherings that somebody got so upset. And again, hearkening back to this kind of safe space where everybody is sharing, and so therefore we become more comfortable to share our deepest hearts.
Actually, I'm from Ukraine. I spent the first weeks in Kiev volunteering, and I really wasn't planning to, because see, I'm crying. Guys, I'm so grateful. It's the first time I see people, foreigners, who are helping us, because all the time I was dealing with what you give us, like with humanitarian help and other things that you're delivering to us, supplying us. And I'm really very grateful that you devote your time, your resources to help, to support, to stand for Ukraine, to stand for us in such situations. So really, thank you very much.
It's extremely powerful. And so this is one clip of a gathering, a village gathering, where people were just sharing their feelings and gratitude. Is that what we just watched?
Yes, it was more of that particular gathering was more of people talking about what they're doing, why they're there, and I always try to get people to talk a little bit about who they are. So this woman, Aliona, was responding to, I mean, definitely the support that she was seeing with her own eyes, and actually meeting people, not just receiving sort of financial support, but actual people. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people that I have met who have either, just on their own dime gone to Ukraine from wherever they are, to be of service. Or are helping, in a variety of ways virtually. It's astounding. So people are, Ukrainians are sitting there and listening to people talking about that, and they themselves are there because they're volunteering with Ukraine now, with this organization to help. So powerful, powerful stuff. And
so this is like kind of stops you in your tracks. You're connecting on a human level with this person sharing, but the entire village as an entity is not about Ukraine only, right? So I'm just thinking out loud right now in real time. I remember just a couple of days ago hearing the UN General Secretary talking about Ethiopia and that they're on the verge of a genocide. And so I imagine that for any humanitarian crisis, people could have gatherings at the village to talk about what's going on. But it doesn't also have to be just human tragedy, right? And war and famine and destruction. The village also can be used in a variety of other ways. So like, what would that look like?
Oh, Anita, I love you. Thank you for saying that. And yes. I mean, first of all, originally I had not envisaged the social impact campaign, this call to care. This is something that was born out of necessity, something that was born also out of inspiration. But generally speaking, I think of the village as a celebration of humanity. So that we celebrate our humanity through our stories, through our strength, through our resilience, through our courage, through our joy, through our love, and through our sorrow and our challenge and our, a variety of pains. But what really happens when we come together and we share of ourselves is we realize how profoundly connected we really are, and that we really are, as Bob Marley would say, one love. We really are one love. And we really are drops in the same ocean. And so as we share our stories, happy or sad and everything in between, it happens on a molecular level. I mean, we literally start, like, if we're sitting in the same room, we stop thinking about our own separate space. We sprawl more, we become more comfortable, we relax, we laugh more easily, we cry more easily. And even with the hardest stories, and I can tell you for, at Ukraine Now, all of these gatherings that we had, when we would leave these gatherings, even though in the middle of this massive crisis, we would leave uplifted. And we were uplifted because we were connecting. And we were connecting because we were opening our hearts to each other. It's so fucking simple. It's just so simple. But it's so hard, right? It's so hard because all of us in different ways have trouble with our own, with sharing. But these gatherings make it easier. And once you start doing it, it becomes more easy in your personal life.
So somebody who's tempted now, who's curious to join a village gathering, what do they do?
Look for us on social media and go to our website, which is really, it's the first ideation of our website, and the address is thevillageearth.com. So the village, and don't forget that village ends with an E and then start earth. So 2 words.
Double E's.
The .com. And so, just sign up there. Yeah.
And so you regularly have village gatherings, and then people can just sign up to whichever one they want to attend?
Everybody and anybody who is interested, come on down. We are really in the initial stages of building the village. So we'll get you into a group, and we're also going to be looking for hosts. So people who naturally love to host, people who have experience with facilitation, people who are passionate about people who are expressive and not, overly afraid to share themselves, to inspire others. So people, creators of transformative gatherings, the whole bunch of people.
So I'm just thinking about all the people who could benefit from this. I mean, there's obviously anybody who's suffering from any mental health issues that might feel lonely or sad, may want to feel a connection among people. People who have felt alienated from social gatherings because of COVID and may still not be interested in going into large groups could gather around a village conversation. People who, well, you tell me. I mean, I imagine this could be used in context like icebreaker work type events. I imagine that it could be used with people who are a little bit shy to, like almost going to, instead of a Toastmasters, you might go to a village gathering. So right. Who do you want to have join?
First of all, anybody who feels a need to join and is willing to be respectful. I mean, that's the one thing we ask of people, is to be respectful. Everything that you mentioned, I mean, certainly we have, I don't think that it's so much the pandemic that has created all the loneliness and isolation. I think it's only heightened it. I think there has been for quite a while now an expanding global pandemic of loneliness. I think a lot of people are lonely, even sometimes the people who seem the most connected to others have some deep loneliness inside of themselves. I think people who are somehow interested in connecting with others, people who love storytelling, who love to listen to stories, people who love to share, people who are looking for inspiration. People who are inspiration, human inspiration. It addresses all kinds of things. There's also, the village is what I call a human and media platform. So there's also people who are interested in sharing widely, not just within the parameters of the group, but people who might be interested in becoming part of some of the media that we will create from a fraction of the groups that we will have will be recorded, obviously with everybody's full-on permission. And those recordings, like what we did with Ukraine Now, will be turned into podcasts and web series and a basic amazing database, like the Netflix of the human story. So for people who want to share more widely and develop their voices as storytellers, can participate in things like that, in gatherings like that.
In prior conversations, I've even heard you say the term transformative entertainment. I think it could be a really interesting, not to replace traditional entertainment like going to the movie or reading a good book, but an add-on that you can, have a date night going to a village and then having a conversation afterwards about the experience. Like, I think so much of it is the experience of being at a village, to recognize viscerally what happens when people open their hearts, to have more open hearts, that it changes you as a person, and that it is such a powerful and positive experience that that people will be drawn to it, much like movie making has done for decades and decades.
Another amazing point that you bring up, thank you. Transformative entertainment. That was an exciting day that I came up with that. That was about 4 months into the pandemic that I was walking up the street and all of a sudden it hit me, transformative entertainment, which goes alongside the idea that come to a village gathering, come to story time, and you will not only be entertained, you will actually be part of the creation of the entertainment. So like an actor is, like a film composer is, like a key grip is, and the assistant camera and the director of photography and the assistant, like all of us are part of creating something bigger than ourselves. And that's what the experience actually is that you come in on your own, an individual in your own pod, and you leave, as I said earlier, part of the collective whole. And you are inspired and uplifted and jazzed. You are just like humming with this experience. And I do feel as a filmmaker, like, I remember I had a flash. I'm sitting in the theater and I'm like leaning back in my comfortable chair. I've got a Coke and I've got, popcorn, and I'm just like, the screen is radiating on me and I'm passive and I'm enjoying a film and I'm transported, but I'm still very physically passive and I'm not risking anything by being there. So I had that flash of me, a filmmaker, as a film goer. And I realized now, as an artist, I am much more interested in creating experiences for all of us to have, to change the world in the same way I want my films to change the world. Except this is more visceral. This is for everyone, And then I also have the filmmaking. So we're making web series and podcasts, and we're making these call to care, these social impact campaigns, and who knows what else we will create through having all this unlimited creative content to make things for the people that I'm curious, I'm not ready to join a group, but let me see what this is all about. So we intend to create media that will inspire as much, but in a different way that the live gatherings do.
Well, this work sounds so important for this moment in humanity's evolution, where we need to feel like we are part of something bigger than ourselves and that we can co-create a different kind of world, especially for our progeny. So thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm going to have all the information about how anybody can support your work financially or otherwise. And I'll end with the question that I love asking my guests at the end. is, this is a podcast about empathy, and I know that so much of your work is about creating empathy between people through the art and of storytelling. But I'd like to ask, when you were on the receiving end of empathy, can you think of a time and what that meant for you?
Yes, many times. It had been a very hard week, a really hard week. My husband was going through a medical issue and was suffering in a way that was off the charts. And I was there beside him watching this hard stuff. Finally, he started to get better, and I went out to the pharmacy, which was a big outing. And I called my dearest friend, and we were talking, and I was waiting in line at the pharmacy to pick up something. And I was talking, I was keeping my voice low, but I was talking to my friend and just sort of telling her a little bit about what had happened. And then suddenly I was in the front of the line and I was facing the cashier. And so I said, I have to go, bye, love you. And I got off. And then I looked up, facing the woman, like I'm facing you here, looked right into her eyes. I said, hi. And she looked right into my eyes and she said, do you love me too? And I was kind of floored. And, but our eyes just were locked. And I remember actually taking a breath like I was taking a chance, you know. And I said, yes, I do. And then she smiled. And I remember she had like lipstick on, like there was something very bright red about her smile. And then it occurred to me and I said, do you love me? And she said, yes, I do. And that's my story.
It's a very touching story. Don't we all need a little bit more of that in the world? Hallelujah.
Open hearts, open hearts. It's that easy. Just open your heart to a stranger and you will be amazed. And in fact, one of the campaigns that I have coming up, because I love working with artists, I want to uplift artists at the Village, is called, and this is something I had put in the Village demo, Can You Love a Stranger? And I say, yes. I can love a stranger. And at the Village, meet the stranger. And by the way, don't you think that one of my pet projects for the Village is to use technology and use our secret sauce at the Village, not so secret anymore, at the Village, to help people find love. So use this profound connection to help people find love. You know, meet the stranger. Can you love a stranger? Stranger love.
Amen, Brenda. Amen. And I wish you all the best with the Village. And thank you all for listening and watching. And we'll see you next time at Purposeful Empathy.
What if you had access to your own council of coaches to help you break free of your thinking clutter, make that important decision, and liberate you from whatever is holding you back? At Grand Huron International, you get to choose the coach of your choice anytime from anywhere. Visit grandhuroninternational.ca and harness the power of on-demand coaching today.